Welcome to Merseeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Area Sales Manager Greg Davidson updates us on how things are going in the Southwest Illinois area. Hear from Greg in front of one of our Maddie brand wheat fields. He brings us up to speed on what farmers are doing to manage their wheat to bring in more heads. Greg talks about our soybean varieties that are his go-to crops in his region.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Welcome to Merseeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars. We have Ben, Lynn, and Turk, and as we had been telling you over the last couple of weeks that we were going to interview some of the area sales managers to give you kind of a local perspective. With that, I'll let Lynn lead the discussion and introduce our area sales manager.
Yeah, so we have Greg Davidson on with us today. Greg, want to kind of describe where you're at and your area, and then a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do for Mershman's.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Davidson. I'm the area sales manager for Southwest Illinois. I'm just right here on the other side of St. Louis. Today, we're standing here in Columbia, Illinois. We're kind of scouting some wheat this morning.
So a little bit about you. What makes Greg tick? What's some of your passions, and what do you do in your spare time?
So I farm with my dad and uncle, and I'm big on agronomy, and so I'm always looking for the new next best thing that we can bring out to our customers and farmers.
So speaking of agronomy, you want to go through this wheat field you got behind you and kind of let the folks that maybe aren't familiar with wheat a little bit of background on where we're at stage-wise with the wheat and what you got going on in that field behind you and why you're pretty excited about Mershman wheat for this year?
So this morning we're walking this wheat field. It's a little frozen on top. It's currently about 20 degrees here, and we've been counting tillers. We've seen a little bit about 4 to 5 tillers. And a square foot, we're looking between 70 to 90. I got an average about 80 to 84. And what tillering means is how many heads can we get out of this wheat per square foot? And we try to get 100 heads per square foot if at best. So, but our normal average is between 70 to 90. If you're more on that 70 end, we're looking about putting an early shot of nitrogen on to increase tillering to bring in more heads. Or if we're at 90, then we can wait until March or middle of March to put that nitrogen application on for spring as a single one-shot pass. But also when we do that, we also throw in some in the mix that if we're going over, let's say 120 units of nitrogen, then we're going to be looking about putting Palisade in as a more or less to shorten the height of the wheat versus just letting it get tall, putting on a lot of nitrogen, and then watching it lodge. Very
cool. So Palisade, would you classify that as a plant growth regulator? Or for the folks that's not familiar with that product, you want to run through that just a little bit?
So it's a product from Syngenta, and it is a plant growth regulator where it regulates the height of the plant. And of course, like I said in the last statement, that in order to shorten the wheat, we use an average rate between 8 to 14 ounces, depending on your situation. I always tend to go a little less if we have to split that application up between 2 runs, either with 1 run with Harmony or 1 run with a nitrogen pass.
Greg, what's Harmony for those that don't know what that is?
So Harmony is a ALS chemistry that we use for garlic control and some of the broadleaf controls in wheat in the spring. But you can also apply a half rate in the fall and a half rate in the spring to control those broadleaves. So
as a general rule, Greg, you agree that 1 head is 1 bushel? So again, trying to get 100 heads per square foot would be 100 bushel potential wheat?
Correct, Joe.
So as you're sitting out there looking at that crop, Greg, you're obviously looking at this one individual field. Have you been out and scouting multiple fields? How do the stands look? How has stuff overwintered? What does the yield potential look like for a lot of your area down there?
So I've walked quite a few fields, and it all depends where we go. Hold on 1 second.
You should leave that in.
There's the nitrogen.
Traffic control. So I've been looking at a lot of fields, been walking, seeing what our stand counts are, been looking to see if we've got some drainage problems, which we've actually had a mild winter down here. We've actually had a lot of rainfall from going from a dry fall to a wet winter. We've had a lot of precipitation because when we planted this wheat, it was all planted in the dust.
Good. So you're thinking that we're looking at a trend line to bumper crop potential if the stands are there and the planting date was correct?
Agreed.
Good. So let's switch gears just a little bit. Right after we get this nitrogen and sulfur and palisade applied and even your herbicides applied to the wheat, what's the next step? What are guys excited about with soybeans? What varieties do you really like for your area? Kind of give us a little bit of background behind what's coming right around the corner when the flags drop for the planters to start rolling.
So we're going to be this year, we got quite a bit of Kennedys going in the ground, a lot of Austins. That's my two go-tos for my region, are the Kennedys and the Austins. We have a new one coming back. We have a new Eisenhower coming for seed production, and we're really, really excited to hear the Eisenhower coming back in the lineup.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that Eisenhower. You had a few of them in the experimental plots last year. What do you like about that Eisenhower, and what makes it fit your region so well?
So that Eisenhower is a 3.9 maturity. We like that it is a go-anywhere product. We could put in the tough of our soils. We could put it in some of the best stuff that we have around here, and the product just yields. And it's shown a really, really good response to high management.
Greg, spring-wise, we're hearing that spring is maybe 15 to 20 days ahead of a year ago, or normal. Are you seeing that in your area, or are things about status quo?
I would say things are about status quo here, Joe. And the reason why I say that is, even though we've had a mild winter, we're still getting back in these cold spells. And that's what kind of makes me think that maybe we're just going to go back to normal, that we could possibly see another snow or two in March, believe it or not.
Okay.
Even though Groundhog Day, they said 6 more weeks of winter, I don't know if I believe that all the time.
What about Joe Skunk?
There's a lot of skunks from here to Louisville. I can say that from the travel from last week.
So it's
It
coming.
could be coming.
I've seen some of the projections, and you go down, into Arkansas and south, and they're saying about 15 to 20 days ahead, the green up is. So we'll see if we catch up, or if we're going to stay like a normal spring.
Right. Now, there is a lot of guys that I've seen on social media that it has a lot of corn planted down in Texas. They're planting corn hard, and believe it or not, I think we're going to have a big corn year over a big bean year.
What are some of the farmers in your area trying new, Greg? What are some things that guys are thinking about when let's talk about soybeans in particular, because we're primarily a soybean company. What are some new things that guys are trying in the area to try to catch that extra bushel?
So, take it for example, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have heard of the TV show Podfathers. And they are a group of guys that try to do whatever they can to raise 100 bushel beans. And I think these guys are finally catching on that we need to start putting double rates of fungicide on, or split shot passes, start foliar feeding more insecticide. I think these guys are finally waking up around here and seeing if you take a product with these high grain prices that we have currently and make multiple trips across the field, as long as they pay, that we could push and get more bushels out of these fields than anything.
Yeah, it's always good to definitely take care of that plant, and there's lots of different options out there for farmers that are really pushing from a fertility standpoint and from the fungicide standpoint for sure.
And the biggest thing I will say, if you have a product or a plant and you could do anything you can so that plant doesn't have any stress, you take all the bare holds off that plant to produce as much as it can.
I would absolutely agree with that statement. Soybean plant that's not under stress has the ability to definitely push high yields.
So in your area, Greg, talking about these different applications, how does supply of fungicide and chemistry look for your area? Has there been any concerns, or is everyone sitting all right?
So on the chemistry side, believe it or not, we've actually seen that the chemical prices from December, January has fell, and they are still falling. The limit or the availability of fungicides are actually pretty short this year, because all of these chemical companies have sat there and have turned and made more herbicide because of our shortages last year, which now means that we're going to have a shortage of fungicides and insecticides for this year.
Definitely one of those things that if you have a product that you're looking for that you really want, having a backup plan is going to be a good thing. Having plan A, plan B, and plan C when it comes to your specific fungicides is definitely going to be a good idea.
I got a question, Greg. What do you do in your spare time for hobbies?
Well, believe it or not, if you take it as like last night at 11:30 midnight, I was still looking up different products for inoculants to put on beans for this year. That would be a easy, dry planter box flow product.
So you just work all the time?
Yeah, I more research anymore.
All right, Greg. Well, we appreciate your time today as we kind of wrap up this interview. For folks in your area that want to get a hold of you, we will put your contact information up, or they can go to our website and look for Greg Davidson there. You are definitely one of those individuals that has a passion for agriculture and a passion for Merseman seeds, and we greatly appreciate what you do for us in that Illinois market.
And we appreciate you guys as much as possible. So, Joe, let's hear that corny joke of the week.
Okay. Great lead in here. Now, again, I hope you can stay long enough. This is a long one, okay? It's entitled The Great Showman. The Great Showman, okay? While doing the rounds on a cruise ship out at sea, a porter on a cruise ship comes across a homeless man sleeping in a lifeboat. He wakes the man up and asks him, "Why is he here?" He says, "I'm homeless, obviously, just looking for some place to lay my head." Then the porter then says, "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't toss you off at the next stop or even right here in the middle of the ocean." The homeless man responds, "Look, I may not look like much, but if you ever need something to entertain the ship one day, come to me. I'll give them a show they'll never forget. Just give me a room and I'll be there day or night." Well, a few days later, the crew ate a really bad breakfast, and everybody, including the crew and the entertainers, came down with food poisoning. And the porter makes his way to the little janitor's closet where the homeless man was sleeping, and in the bowels of the ship, and he bangs on the door and demands the homeless man to get out and put on a show. Okay, no problem, he says. "I need a 75-foot tall diving board set over the pool, and I'll be up in 10 minutes, said the homeless man. The porter rushes up to the deck, makes the other cabin hands aware of the situation. They manage to set up a makeshift diving board that stands 75 foot above the pool on the top deck of the ship. And then they make the announcement that they're going to have a change in the entertainment. So the entire ship is cramped in around this pool to witness this marvel. And the homeless guy steps up to the deck. He makes his way up the rickety ladder and peers over the drop below, and he jumps twice on the diving board and leaps off. The crowd gasps in horror as he misses the pool, but rather than leaving a bloody mess on the deck, the homeless man crashes straight through the top deck into the dining lounge, and soon after that goes through that deck into the kitchen and goes through that deck and comes crashing through the first class deck, then the second, third, and even the animal holding room of the ship, and eventually hits the last floor the engine room and comes to a stop after crashing off the engine. As much of the crowd as possible, including the porter, are starting to look through the many holes in the ship, and when to their amazement, the homeless man springs up to his feet, gives a bow, and the crowd goes wild, and the homeless man makes his way up to the top deck. The porter, simply amazed by the feat of endurance, says to the homeless man, "How did you manage that?" "Oh," says the homeless man, "I've been through many a hardship in my life."
A lot of setup.
long way to get to a very disappointing end, right?
We got there.
Hardship.
Definitely a corny joke.
Corny jokes. Well, Greg, I'm sure glad your part was better than mine. So, well, as always, we thank everybody for watching and listening today by podcast. We sincerely appreciate your business. We hope that you and your family are safe and healthy, and we'll see you next week.